We're talking about HVAC technicians or something?
Oh yeah. That's a good business. Like a lot of that kind of stuff, I feel like it's just going to become more and more lucrative compared to things like tech.
Yeah, we're having like electrical issues at the house like this weekend, and this like electrician came, and like I'm just renting this house right now, but the quote they sent was like 40 grand for like 2 days of work, and it was like, and it like needed to be done, and I was just like, yeah, wow, like there's certain like really physical things that just need to be done. Like it's a good business, and yeah, I think that's kind of what we were talking about. Was just like I started running ads for my brother's home services business, and I was like, oh, it's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel, like going to like a very simple business and just applying decent digital marketing like approaches. And it's just like, yeah, if I ever, I don't know, wanted to go off into the forest for a while and not like run a business, I feel like I could still just like, make a decent living running ads.
You just need to go find a couple of guys to do the work, and you start running ads and do the business side of it, and you're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah. How's everybody's new year? How's everybody feeling about going into 2026?
I mean, I'm excited for 2026. I think 2025 was like the work that I did in 2025, I think was the most challenging I've ever done. It wasn't the hardest year for me on a personal level because I think two things. One, like I've had years in the past where I didn't make any money and I had really hard work. It's just like just working insane hours. You're you're just trying to survive, and you also aren't making any money doing it. And that sucks. You've got this like pressure of feeling like you're not gonna make it. So I don't have like on a personal level not gonna make it. So 2025 wasn't like that. Like it wasn't as emotionally draining, but I think the work that I did was the hardest work I've ever done. So I think 2026 might be that way as well, but I'm excited I feel like I'm going to see a lot of the positive results of that I didn't get to see in 2025. How about you?
Good. I mean, I feel like really, really good about 2025. Like generally, we grew like pretty well. And like generally our profitability increased. So those are just like two things that are great when they go hand in hand. I feel like pretty good about 2026, mainly because I think that there's just like more of less like kind of like less questions with more answers. And if you just kind of just repeat answering the questions, it's like, okay, the business will grow, like everything like that. And I just have like a weird, I don't know, like esoteric feeling that 2026 will probably be like a really fruitful year for like businesses in general. I have like a lot of optimism for it.
I mean, basically, since 2020, mid 2022, it's been rough for businesses. I mean, we're looking at like 2.5, 3 years now of really challenging times for businesses in general. So it does seem like we should be coming out of that at some point.
I always wonder, like, I think that most businesses fail, right? So it's always been really tough for businesses, but there are some businesses that are crushing it. And I think that, yeah, we're going to see more. I love seeing the capital requirement come down, right? Obviously, the big one right now is in developers and, agentic coding, AI and stuff. And the idea that there could be, solo founders that have these incredible, extremely useful businesses that they're creating, or small teams, or just less of a requirement for, extremely expensive development teams, right? Where we got Opus 4.5 now, and people are blown away, right? But something better is coming. It's going to be really fast. So I don't know. I'm excited. I agree with you, Zach. I think that things are going to be great for some businesses, but yeah, also terrible for others. For most businesses, it's going to be terrible.
Wait, why?
Because most businesses fail.
You're talking about terrible because the 90% fail stat, right?
Right.
Yeah, but if you have to adjust for like that stat is actually like really inaccurate.
Right. It's a bad frame of reference.
Yeah, the better because you have like a bunch of people that like start cupcake stores. And then it doesn't adjust for businesses that like survived more than 1 year, in which your like longevity is much longer. And then it also doesn't take into account people that just like shut down their business for like whatever reason. And you also just like can't really compare yourself to like, if you compare yourself to everyone, if you just like wake up and like are a moderately decent human being, like you're in the 1% like already. So it's like, if you compared yourself against people that at least have the same level of ambition as you, it's like much more than like 90 something percent. It's just like businesses aren't just businesses. Like it matters like who's like running them and like stuff like that. Like I think if anything, like businesses might be able to survive longer than before because like the capital requirement to keep something floating is like so much less than it ever has been. And there's like more things that can just like exist without capital requirements. And so as much as I don't think that stat is like a useful one, I think it would improve like over time with technology. But then you can also assume that with like the ease and like the reduction in sort of barrier to entry, you're going to have higher volume. So potentially more quote unquote failing.
Yeah.
That's a good
Also, how
point,
do you
eh?
define even like what a business is? Like, is it a side project that someone just like started up and like they created a Delaware corporation? Or is it like, okay, maybe it needs to like hit a certain point to be considered a business?
My guess is if you had a business that's, say, at least 3 to 5 years old with over $1 million in revenue, I bet the annual survival rate of those businesses are probably quite high. In any given year, I'm guessing single-digit percentage of those businesses fail, but that could be wrong too. But that's like at a point where you're doing revenue, you've been around, got some momentum, or at least like some base to build off of.
Right. Talking about new businesses, Zach. What's the new business? Not yet?
Yeah, not yet. Yeah,
I'm
not
excited
yet.
though.
It's not really like a business. It's more of like an art project that I think will make money. Yeah.
Hell yeah. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
It's Bored Apes or whatever that was.
No. I mean, talking about crypto and NFTs, we can probably bring up. I thought one of the most interesting. We have a tweet here from Taylor Holiday about 2026 predictions. The one that stood out the most to me was number 1, which is just like stablecoins being like a really, really useful thing for like D2C businesses. And I think they're just like a useful thing for humanity, like generally. What did you guys think about this tweet from Taylor?
Let's see. It says that stablecoins, the most exciting crypto innovation for D2C brands, is incredibly boring. That's why I love it. If you know the hype and look at P&L, stablecoins are just contribution margin technology. Here's the math. Old way, okay, so taxes on your revenue. New way, lower taxes on your revenue. Yeah, I can see it. I think it's just
the challenge is
Right.
getting people to change their behavior, right? Like that's why it's taken 15 years or so for crypto to even get where it is today. But I guess I didn't look into this too much, but is he talking about it in terms of like people using it to purchase through brands and to basically exchange monetary value?
There's that, but I listened to a podcast with the founder of Stripe a long time ago. Not even a long time ago, maybe just like a year ago. And he was talking about how they're really like interested in like building in stablecoins as like to just like the Stripe ecosystem. And the exact same thing will happen with Shopify. I think looking at a stablecoin, like adoption and speed is happening a lot more internationally than in the US. A lot of that is because of the way the US banking is sort of like set up. But I do think that US banks are like really like working at potentially like upgrading sort of like the infrastructure. And then also I think if you just look at like what's happening with like World Liberty Financial and like whatever it was, American Bitcoin and stuff like that, I don't think we're like super far off to where USD will be like digitized in some sort of way. And if that is true, it does eliminate things like Visa, MasterCard, and things like that because those transactions don't need to be reconciled by them. And so the question is, I mean, over a long enough time horizon, this just gets built into the competitive landscape, right? Like if you have an extra 6% to spend on acquisition, it just goes to acquisition. So it doesn't, like that. I don't necessarily know if it stays on your balance sheet forever, but if there was an opportunity to build it into your business and just like make your business like kind of like quote unquote stablecoin ready, whenever that sort of shift did happen, I guess it could have like a contribution margin sort of like season before it's just like baked into the competitive sort of like landscape.
I guess I maybe just don't understand enough about this, but I feel like the incentives to get there are so hard to it's hard to get to the right incentive. So Stripe, obviously, like they're incentivized because they're the payment processor. And so, yeah, if they could cut out Visa, MasterCard, and all those guys, like that doesn't hurt them at all. But obviously it hurts Visa and American Express and MasterCard significantly. And then you've got this like decades of behavior where we've been trained into this idea of like credit card point stuff. And that exists because of that ecosystem, right? The only way that the reason why there are things like cashback on your credit cards or airline points or whatever it is because of the fact that there's basically extra money being taken in that process that doesn't need to be taken. And that system was basically set up. I mean, I'm assuming the way it started, I haven't researched this stuff, but I'm assuming the way it started is a credit card company said, okay, well, we can get more users by offering this benefit. And if we offer this benefit, we'll just pass on that fee to the merchant, and the merchant's not going to say no because they need to take the credit card. And so that's how that stuff starts, right? So like I just signed up for the Robinhood credit card recently.
Oh, nice. It actually came out?
Yeah. So I just got it literally like 6 days ago. And so now I'm putting everything on there, 3% cash back if I drop it in my Robinhood brokerage account. And now and then I get 3.25% interest on that as well. So it's just like auto funneling my personal spend. I don't know if it's a business card or not, but anyway, I've just been experimenting with that. So like that's a great benefit to me as a consumer on money I'm already going to spend. So that you kind of have to like get the consumer out of that mindset. Like I will use my credit card to get my rewards essentially over a debit card if there's not extra fees. The fees have to outweigh the benefit that I get from that card.
Right.
Or else I'm going to the credit card.
Yeah. So the way that this happens is if we're looking at this calculation that Taylor did, he says there's 6% in total spend, right, from the consumer that isn't baked in, which means that there's essentially 6% here that can be built in under some sort of rewards program, whether that's in the shop app, whether that's from some other sort of like credit issuer that's issuing credit on the stablecoin level. And so like, it essentially is like someone just needs to create the incentive that exists. I mean, also I would say like things like credit card points and things like that are so much less impactful for, let's call it the American average consumer, in which the main value of a credit card is the concept of credit. And so, yeah, it's like, I think the way that we think about credit cards and the way that the average American consumer thinks about credit cards is like very different. Like maybe people are like, oh, I get some points, but like realistically, most personal spend isn't anywhere close for that to be meaningful. Like it might've been a reason to like sign up for a card is like, I'll get a free flight or something with like bonus miles. But like, I think the average consumer is their main value in it is like the credit.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And so then you need to find a way to replace that system if you actually want to move the average consumer off of using a credit card to using stablecoins effectively. So yeah, I don't know what that looks like, but I guess I just think that process is so hard. Like it would have happened already if it was easy, right? But you got to get the business model.
Do you know that? I might butcher this because I'm like, I haven't read about this in a long time, but I read about it one time and about how Visa started and how hard it was for like Visa to become what Visa is. And essentially like they had to like, they went like state by state where they're reconciling essentially credit checks. Like they were like a book of like more like checks than actual like credit cards and things like that. But like, I think something similar will happen here where it's like, I think maybe at the speed at which things can happen now, like there'll probably be a lot more competition at the beginning and it will feel a lot messy, but like someone will kind of like take the cake and then someone will follow. And I think it will just be maybe they will, right? Like Visa very well could just like figure out like a version of this.
I mean, it's something like the way those reward systems work, it's not like Visa's, whatever that credit card, exchange ends up being, let's say it's 2% on average. I don't know what these numbers are over here, but 2.9. Well, that's digital. I know it's less for in-person payments, but anyway, whatever that number ends up being that they get on average, they're not keeping most of that. Most of that's actually going back into the ecosystem in some form or another. So there's probably a way for them to reduce the cost of those things while still maintaining their profits and maybe even increase their profits.
Right. Yeah, I don't know much about stablecoins, but I can see the incentive for a consumer if the consumer can wrap their head around it and get credit and still use stable coins. But
I mean, I think it's like the way it always should be. Like the fact that you can't send a wire on a Sunday is fucking insane. So
Not
like
even on a Sunday. You can't send it after like 4 p.m. Eastern time or
on a Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait until
And if you send it on a Friday, it won't actually clear as fast as if you sent it like Monday morning. And like there's like that shouldn't exist in 2026. So like I had a friend that needed to pay me like a large amount of money for something, and yeah, it was like we were just in a car driving, stable coins, boom, it was in my account in like 10 seconds. He didn't have to call his bank to approve the wire. Like it is the way that it just should be. It's going to take some time, but for it to be in our everyday transactions. But I think even just replacing wires. Like I recently we had to renew our Cloudflare contract, and it was like $250,000. And I wasn't able to call in that wire to the bank that we use in Canada. So like I had to go on Christmas Eve to the bank and send that wire. Like it's like to get in my car and drive. Like that's fucking crazy.
And that is getting a lot. That ability to use crypto is getting a lot easier. I mean, now you can go and you can set up a Coinbase account in a few minutes. You connect it to your bank with Plate or whatever they're using. And then, you can pull that money and convert it to USDC. And now you have a stable coin pegged at the US dollar that you can transact with. And it literally takes minutes to do that. So it's easier now than it was. I mean, 10 years ago, transferring crypto to somebody was such a pain. And now it's, you can do it in minutes.
Yeah. And the incentives there, right? For like every party involved, right? Every time you buy a stable coin, they're buying US treasuries, right? If you think about like international customers as well, you live in a country like Argentina or Venezuela, or you can have US dollar instead of whatever currency they have that's being hyperinflated, right? And then I guess for things like micropayments as well, you can't do that across payment gateways that have these high fees. You have to do them, and you could imagine there's a world where AI is performing these micropayments as well, and there's no way that it can be on these old rails. It has to be on new rails, right?
Well, and have you guys it's interesting to see like Coinbase, the one I use. So I've got a little bit more understanding of how it works, but they've got lending and stuff built in now too. So you can click a button, put your money up for lending. And I don't know, let's say you put $1,000 in to lend to somebody. Immediately you're earning, it's like an interest every minute or something like that. It's some crazy number. You literally like put your $1,000 up for somebody to borrow. It's just going into the system. And it looks like right now it's at 5.6%. So it's not crazy, but it's basically liquid. Like you put the money in, you get your 5.6%. There's probably some risk associated with that. I have no idea. I haven't looked into that too much. And then at a certain point, you just like, okay, well, I need that money. You click the button, you get it back out. Like the ability to move money so easily just creates more opportunity for things like lending and borrowing and it just creates more liquidity in the system in general.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. Be cool. Be really cool. What else what were some of his other predictions here? Social commerce has its killer app. I'm not sure if you saw this one. There's one in here that I really liked. I think it's a great idea. I don't know who can build it. It's very complicated. Shopify and Uber merging is cool, right? It's the idea that deliveries from Shopify could be quicker if there's a collaboration with Uber. I think it's already announced, actually. Would be very cool. And then let's see this one. I don't see it. I can't remember which one it is. It's basically like incremental ad buying. It is really interesting.
Just for a quick note, I didn't realize it, but it looks like Uber and Shopify are very similar market caps.
Yeah?
Yeah. Shopify 206 billion, Uber 171 billion.
This is it. Look at this. So the rise of the universal feed. For the last decade, it accepted to have to log into Meta, TikTok, Google, Snapchat to buy media. using the exact same creative, right, in these walled gardens. So universal feed, maybe launched by North Beam or House. I could see House doing something like this. You upload the video once, and then in real time, it's being placed wherever, I don't know, impression is cheapest, intent is highest, CPA is lowest, ROI is highest, right? So if it's cheap on AppLovin, it buys it there. If it's cheaper on Shorts, it moves the budget there. Powered by incremental optimization. How cool would this be? This would be awesome, right? I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of trust in that your incrementality provider, but it's a hell of a lot better than, trying to juggle 6 different marketing platforms, right?
Probably be using post-purchase surveys for that. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Don't have impression data.
Let's see. What were some of these other predictions? So we've got some from Sean as well. Why 2026 will actually be good. This isn't much of a prediction, actually. This is more just the world is going to be better, which I can get on board with. But Cody had a few predictions as well. These are more marketing related, though. Right? TikTok Shop continues to crush. Meta goes after new customers. This is dense. Have you guys seen much of this AI content in ads? Or actually, whenever I look at 4Play, I don't see any AI ads in the big brands ad inventory.
I think it really depends on how you're defining what is an AI ad. Like statics, I don't think you could discern whether something was AI or not now. Video, I think there's still like a little bit of sort of like difference between everything. I think the one prediction I really liked about Taylor was that the death of the creative strategist. I think it's a bit potentially dramatic. But his like general thesis here, right, is that the pontification of like what to create next is going to be kind of gone, and it's going to be much more like directing an orchestra. I mean, he didn't say that. I kind of just like summarized that as that, where it's like you need to connect the pipes. You need to essentially create as much volume as you possibly can, and a lot of like the ego is going to be removed. I generally agree with this, and I think it's like really aligned with like our business, which like I would say most of our customers are creative strategists. I still think that there's going to be potentially some of these people that turn into more like brand strategists, which is like, where should this brand go? And then how do we make sort of like whatever knowledge base that we're using to inform the things that we're creating next? Like, how do we make this align with the direction we want this brand to go? But I think like individual asset creative strategists and like sort of like over engineering, I think is going to whittle away. I don't think we're going to have people writing scripts and sending them off. I think it would be much more of like a review, unlock the workflow type process. So,
I think I agree with you. When I look in 4Play and I look at like, it's all brand. Is it? I guess you could separate the creative strategist from the brand strategist in this way. But if I look at like the brands that are really ripping it, they're growing so fast. A lot of it is brand, and sometimes really unexceptional creative. Like this is a new project. It's just a flat lay taken point of view with the guy's feet in the shot. There isn't like you don't need, or maybe you do, I don't know, a creative strategist for this. But you do need somebody who gets the brand, who can like forecast culture and say, this is what people want to see, right? I think this kind of aligns what you see with like,
I don't think you can do that with a supplement. I don't think you can just like put like a LMNT pack out on the ground. But like this, it's like, oh, it's a t-shirt. I like this t-shirt. Like, it's like, this is just the product. The product is the ad.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, you can do this with supplements.
Zach, do you see that happening in 2026, or kind of a process that can start? It's already started, obviously, but like just continues to expand in 2026, and that's years out? Or do you actually think it's a pretty quick change?
The more and more brands that I talk to, they all say that they're all trying to figure out if they really just need to always be creating new ads consistently without any shortcuts. And like, I think the answer becomes yes and yes more. And so the other true thing is that there's like 1,000 ways to skin a cat, right? So it's like, I don't really. I honestly think that potentially people are like way too into X and Twitter about like the way in which we're scaling on Meta. It's like tries different things with your brand and with your account. Like if you 3x the volume of creatives without reducing the quality, did you scale more? And if the answer is yes, then you found that to be true for you. But then there's also companies that are like super brand centric, in which that like short-term scale is potentially like a long-term threat. So I think it really comes down to just defining what like matters to you like right now. And it's like, do you want to like double the number of customers you brought in from last year? Total volume of customers? That's true. Then I would say increase creative diversity in whatever way that you guys can like skin the cat. If
Well, I
creative
like what you
diversity
said about there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, because I think that kind of, from how I see it, that is why launching so many creatives works. I used to work with this brand and they were huge and no one got it. And they worked with a couple of different agencies, and I'd meet with these different agencies and they would chat, and then another one come in and they would all be like, what's your hero product? And this brand hit the quota on Google for the amount of products you're allowed to have listed. I don't know, it was something like 2 million. They had to apply to increase the count of products. Their, I guess, version of let's launch thousands of different creatives was let's launch thousands of different products. Let's just keep finding new ways to provide supply to market demands. And they found new best-selling products through the process of just launching new stuff, right? And I think that's the same thing. It's like you're creating more that's in competition for the customer, right? Like if you're like a one SKU store, right, that product better work because all your chips are on black. Same thing with an ad. If you have one ad, that ad better work because all your chips are on black. But as you introduce more, you give yourself more opportunities to hit a home run, right? So yeah, I think I couldn't agree with you more. There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, but like activity moving forward is the only way you're going to find it, right? I say the only way, but I guess, there's 1,000 ways, right?
I just keep thinking with all things AI and the way that we change workflows and start thinking about things differently, I keep wondering how the technology question is one thing, and like what the technology can do, and then the human adoption of those technologies is the other thing. And there's two separate factors. And I still don't know I don't feel like I have a good sense of how fast humans will adopt these technologies. And that's like the biggest variable in all of this.
Also, if you had a brand that grew 300% last year, are you going to change anything in January of this year? Probably fucking not, right? Yeah. So it really depends on where you're at and if you need to adapt versus not adapt. Like, yeah.
But if you've been in slow decline for 3 years, you're going to try whatever to try to get yourself that.
Yeah. Is there anything that you guys think will be drastically different about the way that you approach things in 2026 versus the way that you approach things in 2025?
Yeah, for me personally, I think I'm more and more sold on more activity. I think us just, and you said something once on the podcast that I thought was, it's really stuck with me, is that most things are two-way doors. Most things aren't one-way doors. We've tried things at Foreplay that were on paper a bad idea from everyone who pitched like an opinion. Said, oh, this is terrible because, I don't know, ManyChat tried it and it sucks at ManyChat. And then it worked for us. So I think that I'm so sold on activities, on doing as many things as possible. Even if, some of those things end up being a swing and a miss, it creates more opportunity, I think.
I think the one thing that I really took away from 2025 is that in a business, and especially like once you get beyond I have an idea and I want to see if the market wants this idea, you enter a different mode of business and it becomes very much about execution. And I think that's the thing that I took away from 2025 is how do you become excellent at execution? And it's like, how do you get a little bit better every day? How do you get a little bit better every week? How do you get a little bit better every month? And then be thinking about the big swings that you're going to take. But the reality is in a given year, you're not taking very many big swings. You're taking 1, 2, 3. I mean, it depends on the business, I guess. But like in my context, it's like 1 to 3 big swings in a year, and everything else is just about like doing the little things really well. And so I think I didn't pay as much attention to that previously. In 2025, that really felt like a big learning for me. And I think for 2026, that's something that I really am planning on doubling down on, just executing really well in the daily things. And then and actually executing really well on the big swings too, but just making sure that like you're like what really matters is not so much the big swing, it's like the swing. And then how do you iterate on top of that after you make that happen? Because it almost never works the way you want it to initially.
I think ours is very similar. Like I think the thing that potentially we lost a little bit near the second half of 2025 was sort of just like velocity that like small features were built. And I think part of that was like, I wouldn't even call it tech debt, but just like product considerations beyond the thing that the feature was touching. And so I think my biggest goal is to just like eliminate the idea that because something affects something else, that the pace needs to slow down and like all those things need to be considered. Like I almost just think like that doesn't really matter. Like it is, a bit like you don't want to get into a situation where you're playing whack-a-mole, but like if you need to hit a few different areas, that's not that sort of bad. So I think I just want to get back to consistently shipping new product because I also think that's just like generally the best marketing as well. And I can have a lot more attention into sales. I think those would be like the biggest sort of like changes and differences into 2026.
He says that while our head of sales is on our rip right now. He's absolutely crushing. He's doing
No, I
such
mean
a
like
great...
more my attention.
Right. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
I get you.
Yeah.
Did you guys see this from Meta? One sec. Okay, I mean, the first line, I don't know if I can even read it, but urgency forces prioritization and stops people working on stupid things. I think there's a idea of tech debt, and like I know it's important, and I don't want to minimize it. I'm not a dev, so I probably shouldn't talk about it. But like it's like a red light to me, right? It says stop instead of build, right? And I don't know. I think I have a bias to action. I like the idea of building things, even if they kind of suck to begin with. I'm not sure if you guys remember, Rashad brought up on one of our first episodes, he built a button, I think himself, or like he made someone do it, for like Apple Pay or something that didn't even work just because he wanted to see how many people click it, right? I think that sort of thing, even if it sucks, even if it doesn't work, you've learned something in the process, right? But tech debt and a lot of the things that you hear that slow things down, I think there's some validity to it, but I think it slows things down a lot in the process.
I do think it's such a hard thing. I mean, having experienced a lot of tech debt over the last 15 years, it is a trade-off. There's a balancing act that you have to play there, right? Because you get certain things where it's like, okay, this thing is not very good right now. Let's say it's this bit of code is a 4 out of 10 in terms of functionality. Like it works, but it kind of sucks and you want to make it better. And then you start having to look at like, okay, well, what is the cost of getting this to a 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever it is? And then what is the business cost of not doing that thing? And in software, the cost of not solving it oftentimes compounds as you grow, right? And I think the mistake that a lot of people make with solving tech debt, and there's nuance to this as well too, is taking something and saying, okay, well, I got to get this to a 9, right? If it's at a 4, I got to make this a 9. Well, to get it to a 9, you have to stop what you're doing for 3 months to get that fixed. But that's really not what the objective should be. The objective should be, how do I get it to a 5? Because that is 20% better than it was previously. And in terms of looking at like the exponential cost of this, it maybe reduces the cost to your business cuts that in half of like whatever problems this is creating, right? And so I think that's the thing I can't say I'm extremely good at that, to be clear. Like I think I'm still learning how to navigate that, but that's the constant conversation you're having of like, how do we look at that trade-off? And it's a constantly shifting target in that context. And usually just slightly incrementally better is the right approach as to saying, no, we just got to redo this whole thing.
Right. It reminds me of our conversation with Matt and Ryan from Clover Labs, and Stamped a little bit too, actually, because Stamped, it seems like it's a bit of a a case study in just build fast and create as much tech debt as possible with that original founder from Singapore. Is that right?
Yeah. And it's like, okay, build fast. Don't worry about the tech debt. You have to pay for that eventually. But then I think
Right.
then the problem on Stamped was like, okay, well, we're gonna do everything the right way. But if it takes you 2 years to do it the right way, when you could have been making it incrementally better every month, that making it incrementally better every month is the better approach, in my opinion. You fix the problem in some ways the same way that the problem was created, right? Yeah, I could be wrong, but that's my working theory in terms of what the right approach is.
I like it. Yeah, it's interesting because Stamped is a product that so many Shopify, so many merchants use and get a lot of value from, but it was built in this rush by a savant who made a huge mess, but like it worked, right?
Yeah, and it still works. Like, to be clear, it's like it works. It's like it's the things on the margins that you aren't like most people aren't affected by, but it has enough impact at scale that it just is like a massive drain, and that's the challenge.
What are you thinking, Zach? How do you feel about tech debt and building the offset to speed?
It just depends on what your objective is at any given time. Like, realistically, if you have like really, really high churn, probably don't build anything new. If you have really good retention, but your growth is slow, you probably certainly should build something new. Yeah. So I think it just like really depends. But I would also say that I sometimes look at things like how densely can you like build layers and things like that. And so if you have a bunch of debt that every time you build a new layer becomes like more and more unstable, not only is it increasing the risk for something bad to happen in which there's a fire drill in which then all productivity goes to zero, you're also decreasing the total quality of everything you do there going forward. And
Right.
so you somehow need to like reconcile the idea that, yeah, we might be moving faster, but at some level, the quality of output is going to be less. And the longer that it's put off, our ability to achieve excellence reduces. So it's like it's like very much a case by case basis thing. And I actually think oftentimes it's something that you can like come to conclusion with based on gut. Like, I actually don't think sourcing opinions often for these types of like decisions are like really good, because like a CTO is going to be like probably like super, super on board with like fixing everything and making everything clean and like all that kind of stuff. Versus like a new developer is going to be like, oh, I just want to do and work something new. I don't want to touch the code that I wrote the first week I was ever at this company when I knew nothing. And so it's like there's bias in this area, like an incredible amount of bias. And so I think it's best to just like go with your gut and say like this is what needs to be done, regardless of sort of the opinions at hand. Is like I think the best way to approach it.
I think that's well said. Like a good example of that, I know we're rebuilding our API. And the reason for that is like it works fine, but it's not as fast as it should be. And it becomes a very expensive thing for us to operate because the code isn't efficient. And the way in which people try to get information out of our API causes a lot of inefficiency in querying the data and all that kind of stuff, right? So if we build it better, then it makes everything run more effectively. And then we are able to add more things on top of it because we're constantly adding new integrations and all that kind of stuff. And each of those compounds the problem of this, right? And so we've got this thing that works. We could theoretically continue to scale it as is, but it just becomes more and more fragile the bigger it gets. And so the better approach is to just rebuild it. And fortunately, we've known this is going to be a problem for like 2 years and have been slowly just working towards, okay, well, here's what we need to do in this case, here's what we need to do in this case, and actually like prepping to then say, here's the new, much better rebuilt version of this thing that makes everything faster and better and allows you to build those layers on top of it that aren't going to be as fragile.
This episode is going to be titled Jack Learns About Tech Debt. Okay. Did you guys see this? Did you guys see this tweet? I'm not even sure if I'm sharing the right tab here. Do you see it?
Yeah, I think you are.
Is this the first time you guys are seeing this?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
I mean, it went super viral, but this guy's having like what feels like an existential crisis over playing around with AI development tools. I should read it out loud, actually. Nah, we get the sense from the first line. Basically, he's realizing how much can be done without him and so much faster, and maybe better. This last line here is roll up your sleeves to not fall behind. I guess on this topic, have we converted you to the dark side yet, Jeremiah? Are you vibe coding yet?
Coding? No, I'm learning a lot. I've been doing a lot of our DevOps work at Stamped over the last couple of weeks, and it's actually incredible. Like what now with AI, things that would have taken me weeks. Like we no longer have a DevOps person, and not that I can fill all of those gaps, but legitimately in 2 weeks, I learned much, like most of how the system works, how to make things better. I actually made a massive number of changes. We actually cut our AWS cost by $300,000 a year with the work that I started doing and getting the team involved. So I'd go in and be like, okay, here's the problem, identified it, like figured out what was going on. Obviously using AI to help with all this because I have context in knowing how software works and how servers work and all that kind of stuff, but no context for the specific system for AWS, all that kind of stuff. And now with AI, I can talk to it and be like, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense. That doesn't make sense. Go ask these things. That makes sense. That doesn't make sense. So it's not vibe coding, but it's effectively the same thing, just the DevOps version that I was doing. And yeah, in 2 weeks, we cut $300,000 a year in server costs. So I didn't write the code that fixed those things, but I did go identify all of these different issues. There are other people identifying some things too. So I can't take all the credit, but literally found hundreds of thousands of dollars of like savings that also translate to things being done in a way that were slower and less efficient. And so it's not just saving money, but it's also making the system faster and more performant. So,
dude, that's incredible. That's awesome.
I mean, it's great. I feel like I did something useful for a couple of weeks right before Christmas.
I saw some saw one of our posts, clips from a previous episode with Rashab talking about how a customer service request comes in and it goes straight to a PR. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I need to figure that out. That's what I need.
I don't fucking think that's true.
I also don't know how that works. I'm
like, sure, but like I think I think in concept, like yes, but like there's definitely no way. It would have to be like the most basic thing ever.
It depends on what it is, right? Like we had one of these things that we found that was an issue was like there was this internal tracking tool that was built years ago that nobody's using, and it cost us $5,000 a month and just like data transfer stuff that it was doing. And I was like, okay, well, nobody's using it. Let's go turn that thing off. So the one of our engineers went into Claude and basically was like, hey, remove this function, right? And 10 minutes later, put up a PR that had 250 lines of code changed. And you just like scroll through it, like, yeah, that's good, and then send it. Like that kind of stuff can be done right now, but to like make the strategic decision and do it, I don't think happens yet.
Next episode, we're interrogating Rashab on what he's doing there.
All right. Well, happy New Year, guys.
Okay, catch up with you guys. See you.